telemedicine and virtual consultation has been talked about for like many years, but the scale and scope at which it can operate is still, we are still far from there. So how do you see the digital health landscape evolve post this COVID scenario?
Sure. So, Apurva, this is an unprecedented situation for the healthcare industry, right? I think hospitals are under a lot of stress. There are hospitals that have basically stopped their OPDs. They're only taking emergency cases, and there is a growing number of patients who now don't have any options. They can't even just walk down to the hospital and get a consultation that easily. And that is pretty much the reason why I think a lot of telemedicine services are now finding that mainstream adoption that historically we never saw. I'll talk about oncology. It's very unfortunate and crazy that right now there are a lot of cancer patients who are in the middle of the chemotherapy, but it's not easy for them to figure out if they should continue their treatment and reduce their immunity further, given that there is just such a high risk of acquiring any kind of infection, or the risk of actually cancer growing is so much that there is no option but to continue their treatment. So these are very legitimate cases where patients don't have options. And now what we have done at Onco is we have, for the first time, found wider acceptance among the oncology community to come on board and do teleconsultations. So we are doing teleconsultations with patients who can consult, speak on phone with oncologists, get guidance on what is the right treatment path for them, and plan their treatment accordingly. So the entire approach towards healthcare, or the way you used to approach getting treated, is changing. Rather than just walking down to the next hospital or clinic, patients, I believe there's going to be a systemic adoption where patients will try to first understand what are the options out there for them. Be very comfortable with virtual services. Consult with the experts who may not be in their location right now, but maybe associated and affiliated with bigger hospitals because they might specialize in the diseases they have, and get the right advice, and then get started on their treatment. So I feel that this lockdown will force ourselves to actually think about getting healthcare in a different way, and there's going to be a wider acceptance among the patient as well as physician community, which is going to make healthcare, which was traditionally a very offline industry, more digitally connected. And we are seeing that more hospitals are open to, virtually talking to the patients now. We are seeing people are okay with digital prescriptions now, even for drugs that otherwise they would not consider, just consulting with doctors online for. Having said that, there needs to be a very, very strong regulatory framework because we're talking about healthcare here. And there are risks associated with not having a physical consultation. And what I'm really positive about is the development that we've seen, the government, the initiatives the government has taken, Indian government has taken in the last few weeks. We have seen Indian government for the first time come up with elaborate guidelines on teleconsultation, what is in the scope, what is not in the scope, which is going to make it even more easy and standardized for healthcare professionals across the country to get associated with teleconsultation platforms. So I think it's a positive step. It's a very important step in the right direction. And it's definitely going to change the way people approach healthcare delivery.
I think there's a lot of scope and it has been very underpenetrated, and in just testing times, decisions are fast tracked and people become open to many things which they wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah. So maybe my last question to Ghazal, because in the interest of time, we'll move on to the Q&A and we have a hard stop at 12:15 when we start with our next session. So Ghazal, for example, the changing consumer behaviors, like I must use, hand sanitizer because I'm aware of that bacteria and virus can cause diseases and I need to protect myself. It's not a new finding, but just it has inherently gone into the conscience of people, and it will remain so for the next many coming months. So do you see any change in perception and consumer behavior on what you eat and what you apply on your skin? And in general, just, for example, the hospitality industry, cleanliness, sanitation, hygiene can become equally important as the location of the property itself, be it a co-living property or a hotel, anything. So do you see that change, and how do you think Mama Earth is positioned, because it's an organic, natural product brand?
Yeah, so Apurva, there's definitely going to be a consumer behavior shift post COVID, and we can already see that shift happening even now. What we are doing internally as an organization is doing an extensive KYC, not just to know what consumers are looking forward to, but even in terms of their behavioral change. Are they willing to accept orders? What is stopping them from not placing orders online? Just to get a little idea around how they are thinking, what they are thinking, and what they are looking forward to. Now, hand sanitization is something which is going to become very important, and it will stay important for uh, a longer period of time, if I should say so, right? Similarly, another category which will see a certain growth is disinfectants and killing viruses and germs around you. So that is another category which we think is a potential category for Mama Earth as a brand to think about, and we have started strategizing around that. The entire piece of Mama Earth is all about toxin-free natural products, wherein natural nature-based ingredients. So that is still going to stay the focus of our offerings as we go forward, because at no point of time, while you want to stay away from bacteria, germs, etc., you wouldn't want a lot of chemicals to come into your lives just because you don't have options. So we are now thinking of entering these categories where we can offer
Can you guys hear Ghazal?
No.
No, not really. I think we lost Ghazal. Yeah. I think we'll move on to the questions because we have a hard stop at 12:15. So we have a couple of interesting questions which we have picked up. Okay. So, Aishi, I'll go ahead with you because I know that Ghazal.
Hey, I think I just lost connection for a while.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Not sure what is.
Yeah. So, Ghazal, we are moving on to the questions because we have a 10-minute window left for Q&A. So, yeah, Ayushi, are you prospecting, exploring potential of augmented reality in your business post-COVID? I know that you guys have a sizing algorithm with Fable Street. So maybe you can just elaborate on that and how you kind of, differentiating yourself from the other brands out there in terms of 40% best fit is what I read somewhere in one of your interviews.
I think overall AR will become important. It wouldn't just become important from a point of view of the near-term COVID situation, but overall, I think people are becoming increasingly receptive to technology. So we've already in the past taken some strides, not on the AR front, but ensuring that we are working with data and analytics to predict the right body shapes and body sizes. So which has helped us improve our sizing. So what we do is we typically take 3 body measurements online from the customer. Basis that we have our internal database of more than 30,000 odd measurements. We run them through those measurements to check whether the measurements are accurate or not, what are the errors in the same, and use that to then translate into the right body sizing and building the right garment. So it's actually not just the data and analytics, but a back-end supply chain which can deliver a bespoke or a made-to-measure garment. So that's what we do, and that's how we've decided to differentiate ourselves. But to your point on question on the AR front, it is going to become increasingly important. It has to be supported with significant improvement in the UI and UX of it. And I think that's very important. So if you try to put a garment on me and if I look ugly just because there is a dummy model of me, which makes my body shape look bad, then I would rather go to a traditional format of retail and try it on me and buy. So it has to be supported using that is what I would say.
Correct. Geeta, moving on to you. It's a generic question. Due to equity slowdown, the VCs are focusing more on portfolio companies, which are their existing portfolio. So what would your suggestion be to say Series A startups in the next 2 to 3 months, and what alternate plans? Should they defer their equity raising, or just would you want to suggest them something?
Okay. Actually, I've been speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs about this. So some of them, if you have a great understanding of your product, you've understood your basic product market fit, or earlier in the scenario we were at, where you could have gotten a certain amount of angel money or a pre-series A, to kind of allow you to do that. If you're able to get in some money and bootstrap it to a certain extent to actually find that product market fit, to actually or get some customers so that you have some data to show to a potential investor later, and you haven't done that right now is a great time to do it. Okay. Being able to get some proof of concept that you can actually show to an investor would actually put you in a much better place to get a better valuation in this climate. Right now, investors are not looking to put in money to new companies that much who have no proof of concept, no customers on their rolls at all. So to kind of get past it, we might want to do this. A lot of them are also looking at, can we, for example, raise some money from friends and family at this time and allow us to do that, which is also a great idea. Where you get in, either use money that you have saved up or friends and family money and get proof of concept, get that customer feedback, see what the customer is actually saying about your product, and then with that go to an investor. So an investor will always look for a great investment. So fundamentally, if you have really thought through what your company is, what advantage you have, and how you differentiate it from everybody out there, you still have a great story. But you need to be able to show that, and show that via actual data rather than just an idea now. It's just that idea phase is going to be delayed, right? So now, say for example, with what your previous question was with regard to AR, something like this, earlier you had an idea that this could actually help my product. I fundamentally have this algorithm and this is going to change the way things are done. At this point, do it, prove it, actually show it, get customers to actually give feedback about it, and then take it to an investor, which would be a great advantage.
Great. Another question which is coming up, and again, anybody of you can answer. Do you think that there is any difference between how traditional models are facing this challenge and startups are facing? Of course, there is. But if any one of you, want to throw light upon that.
Fundamentally, I think as startups, and especially like a lot of us, we keep having that argument of which of us are even startups anymore. I think if we are agile to actually look at our business model constantly and examine every piece of that. That is fundamental to being startup in mentality, right? So even a traditional business, they still have a lot of parts of their business that they run like startups, right? And that is a great advantage to have, in that you're very agile to move. Whereas traditional businesses that have processes set in stone and can't really adapt quickly will find it difficult, regardless of whether you have 50 people, 100 people, or 50,000 people. So a big advantage will be being able to look at everything and saying, okay, in this changed circumstance, we need to be able to do this. And not just for a 3-month kind of window, but because this is going to fundamentally change how FY21 is going to look like. Right? So that would be a huge advantage. And so definitely, startups have an advantage. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, definitely being nimbler, being able to take faster decisions is very important.
Yeah.
So for Rashi and Ghazal, one last question. Are you guys taking any initiative to boost employee morale and just keep the productivity high amongst your employees?
Okay, so we are trying to make sure that people don't get burned out working from home and not seeing each other. So we have some fun events that is organized by an HR team. These are all events that are people can just join on Zoom and they can participate. So we do every week we do some events, like we have Chai for Chacha tomorrow, and there'll be an event, there'll be a topic around it. There'll be a moderator, and people can just talk and chat. We encourage everyone, every executive, to make sure that they have 1 hour of we call it quarantini, which is like a fun time with the team getting together and just catching up with each other. We do a lot of these workout video posting stuff on our Slack channel and encourage each other to, and we have these competitions every week one person is made the winner. So we do all those things. But I also feel that, interestingly enough, employee morale has gone up for us in the last few weeks because people feel more responsible. People feel not as dependent on their own individual efforts, and everyone sort of come closer as a family. So morale, I feel like in tough times, sometimes morale goes up, especially in startups and tight teams because people come together. That's what we're seeing.
Definitely. Ghazal?
So we are actually taking a lot of advantage of Zoom right now. None of our meetings are on phone anymore, or most of them, I should say, 90% of them are on Zoom calls. We are making a conscious effort in staying connected with all of our employees, which are 100 plus, and ensuring it's not just with the leadership or the managerial level, but also going way beyond that. So that's one thing that we are focusing on. We have daily meets with all the leadership team ourselves, and they have daily meets with their team once in the morning, half an hour in the evening, wherein all of them are talking about updates. Second thing that we are very aggressively focusing on is training and ensuring we are helping them build skills. So anyone who was in a particular role and was interested in trying out more options or just enhancing their skills, be it Excel, PowerPoint, or be it how to improve product, website as a product, etc. All of that training sessions are happening, and it just boosts your company's morale because while they're not just working, they're also learning, which they never got a chance to do because every day was execution. So now they are doing that. Apart from that, we are ensuring they're sending weekly newsletters to the entire team, which goes from either me or Varun, which is basically summarizing what we are feeling as founders, what is the sentiment, what we have learned during that week around what's happening, and how we see the future shaping up. So this just helps bring all of the teams together. We are celebrating Zoom birthdays as well, cutting virtual cakes, etc. So all of that I think is helping. And as far as my team is concerned, I think they are working even harder. They are upskilling themselves. They are planning for the future. They have different scenarios that they are planned for, and it just gives a lot of confidence to us as leaders, saying that we will get through this.
Great. So definitely light at the end of the tunnel, and over communicating, as all of you mentioned, is very important. So we'll move on to the second session. We are joined by Gaurav Munjal, co-founder and CEO of Unacademy. And the next session will be moderated by Shraddha Sharma, CEO, Yourstory. So I welcome both of you on board. And Shraddha, over to you. Thank you, Rashi, Ayushi, Geeta, Ghazal. Thanks.
Thank you, Apurva.
Thanks, Apurva.
Thanks.
Hey everyone. Let me know when we can get started.
Sure, Gaurav.
Shraddha, are you here? Shraddha?
can't hear. How do I hear the voice?
Shraddha, we can hear you.
Hi. Yes, can I hear? Yeah. Hi.
Hey Shraddha, how are you?
Hi Gaurav, how are you? So good to see you.
I think I'm surprised to see so many people attending. There are almost 500 people watching the session.
Very good, Gaurav. I'm sure you must be used to a larger number also, no?
No. In fact, I have no events policy, but I think Yourstory has been a supporter with us for day one. That's why I'm doing this for you.
Day zero, day -1. No, but good to see you. Good to have you. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is that I've known you for many, many years. And one thing which I wanted to tell everyone who's attending and watching and listening to you is, हिंदी में कहावत है पूत के पास पालने में ही दिख जाता है. So I knew that you were so interested in everything that you said, talked, and exuded. There was this whole passion to teach and the whole passion to get people to know. And I wanted to say that you made me also buy this from Amazon. उसको क्या कहते हैं notepad जहाँ पे content बनाते हैं. What was it called?
Vacuum tablet.
Yes, you got everyone to buy that and to learn. So you were also very generous as a young boy to get everyone to learn to be able to create content. And it's so exciting to see the kind of journey that you made with Unacademy and where you are today. I can vouch for the passion, that madness that you have, and sometimes you prove that if you are mad and if you are obsessed and if you have that sincerity, commitment, then you really build a good, large, interesting business. And I was so excited during COVID times to see a full page ad of Unacademy on Times of India. So congratulations. Why don't you tell us what it has meant to get Unacademy to where it is in such a short span of time, and how, if you had to, give no jargon kind of an answer for everyone who's watching, that if they had to be in your place, tell us quickly what are one or two things that will get us there.
Just 1 second, I'll turn off my notifications because they are bothering a lot. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
I think the no jargon answer would be simple. That what has happened is that yes, we have achieved this in a short span of time, but we have been very paranoid on days we didn't have to be paranoid. For example, I think I was talking to an investor the other day, and we were discussing that how Unacademy has raised money always before they needed it. So, for example, we have always had a runway of 4-5 years. But one of the things that the investor mentioned was that you guys have been very, very paranoid about not spending it or spending it the right way, even when you have had a lot of money. So I think it has taken 5 years, but to us it feels like a lot more. I think the founders have all gained a lot of weight. We have handled more stress now. There is a lot more paranoia. So I think the bottom line is that even when things were going good, we were paranoid about what we should do next, or how and we went back to first principles thinking. We asked ourselves certain questions about what might work and what will work. For example, we have not had a single field sales agent ever, whereas every other edtech startup has had like thousands of sales agents. We have not had a single field sales agent, and somehow counterintuitively, we always felt that if you're building an online product, why do you need push sales to sell it? And I think these are all testing times for us, but Unacademy is the product that is being used the most in these times.
I hear from some of the people who've invested in you, and they say that they're astounded by the numbers. So by COVID,
I am astounded by the numbers. I had not seen those numbers.
Gaurav, you being humble here, knowing you, I'm sure you must be gunning for bigger numbers and you will still not be satisfied with all these numbers.
So my message to everyone is simple in my team also, that we were the first ones to declare a work from home. I think we did it on 12th March, 9 days before the country went. We were one of the first organizations because we realized that this is going to get. In fact, I was sending everyone messages in the first week of March that things are going to get worse. Things are going to get worse. So, but we also knew that there are some products which. When the time is right, so far obviously this hesitation was there about learning online, etc. When that hesitation went away, our product was the most appealing one because we had built it that way. And yes, our simple goal to the organization right now is that how can we make sure that every single person who can be a target user knows about Unacademy right now. And I think we are working day and night to make sure that uh, students who cannot go to offline institutes, or students who and their exams are delayed. So what they are doing at home is they are studying for their exams, which might be delayed, and they don't know when the exams will happen. So these students are relying on us because we are getting them the teachers that they need. So I think, yeah.
So, Gaurav, so what I would urge you to tell all of us and everyone who's watching, I'm sure everyone knows about Unacademy today. You built a large brand with Unacademy, but take us through what is Unacademy and how in the last few years you've evolved. Because I think it started with UPSC training, right? Coaching online. And what is it today?
I think it started long back. If I can share my screen, I would want to show people that like one big thing how it started. But I don't know.
No, sure, please.
Just 1 second. I'll show you how it started. In fact, somebody told me recently about this video because I had almost forgotten.
You will have a lot of digital footprints from the past.
But I was always paranoid, so all good.
Of course.
Yeah. I think this was back in 2010, where I am a third year student in college, and I used to like experimenting. So I made this. What is and I couldn't even afford a good camera then. I did not have a smartphone. I think bunch of my rich friends had Blackberries then, and they used to talk on BBM, etc. But I had this laptop and using a 1.2 megapixel front camera, which is the first message I want to give people, that you need to start with the resources that you have. You can't wait for somebody to give money to you, or you can't wait for the fact that you might not have the. If you have an idea, there are so many tools available right now that you might not need that CTO or co-founder or investment or some business strategist to help you out. So this was just one video. And then what happened was that how do I stop sharing? Yeah. And what happened was that a few months later, this video, a series of these videos became viral. I had created these videos for my friends, and obviously I liked experimenting, and it worked. But I would only start this as a company 4 years later, after a small finding flatmate startup that I did called FlatChat. But what was important was that this is what I tell people, that if you want to start something of your own, the best way to do that is by being a content creator. I think that's the easiest way. Start a YouTube channel, start a blog, start writing on Twitter, and try to grow it. Because once you grow something, maybe you painted something and you want to sell it online. So try to get more transactions, or you launched an online course, whatever it is. Start something, and what it does is it gives you it gives you a good feedback loop. For example, if you get 5 users, also you pick up the call and you talk to them what's working for them, what's not working for them. I think for me, this journey came back in college when I was running blogs, etc. And I got my first Google AdSense payment when I was 15 years old. So I was running blogs, etc. at a very young age. So I think for me also it started as a content creator because I was creating something, and maybe in the beginning it was content, and eventually it was products, and now it's business. So I think start by creating something and getting people to use it. It can be anything. It can be a YouTube channel. It can be maybe you're playing a game and you're streaming it. Maybe you're writing something. Maybe you're writing a book and publishing online. You don't even need a publisher today to publish a book, and try to get users to it. I think eventually, once you play that game, just try to play a bigger game every time, and you have a wonderful business. And I think your story also started as a blog, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, Gaurav, let's come back to this thing. I think you put out a very, very relevant, and I've seen that in your journey, right? Like how you've been passionate, how not just this video that you showed, but you've been writing content. You used to write, you liked writing, and more importantly, you liked explaining. But today, right now, for everyone who's watching this, listening to you, I want you to tell us, from being an individual contributor and your passion and your paranoia, which is in full abundance, to building an organization, to starting up, and then from starting up, building today a scaled organization. Take us through the step so that today, from an individual contributor, someone who's watching here, we have 493, 495 people. If they are going to start something in this space, from passion to large scale business, what are one or two things, three things that made it happen?
Yeah, I think one of the things that worked for us is speed. If you focus and say that we want to continue growing, so let's say you're an individual creator right now. What can you do to expand it? Maybe it's an idea. What you need to do is that what I have learned from my thing is that if you have speed as a moat, if you make sure that you want to continue growing, maybe doing more experiments, because I'll tell you this. Maybe right now we are at $50 million ARR of a product that we launched 1.5 years ago. It took 5 pivots to get there. 5 times we pivoted our business model, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. We started as just a free platform. We still have free content, but then we pivoted to maybe educators selling courses, and we did so many pivots. We didn't have the right answer, but what we knew is that we are going to take a lot of risks. And at one point, we took a risk when everything was going fine. So I think December of 2018 is when we did 3 crores in revenue in a month, and it was our best month ever, and we were all happy. But I think, like, to the founders and the leadership team, something was bugging, that how do you get this 3 crores from 30 crores? How do we get there? And we didn't have the answer, because the business model that we had then, we didn't know how it will scale. And so in Jan, we tell investors that we are going to move to a subscription model. And I think we are one of the fastest product in the country, and probably will be counted in some of the products in the world, where we went from 0 to $50 million ARR in 13 months. So we launched the new product in 13 months, but people say that, hey, look, it's just 13 months to get to $15 million ARR. No, it took me 4 years before that to do so many pivots to finally reach a stage where I could scale so fast.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of learning. So I don't see, for whatever you are starting, I don't know what's the right answer, but you need to keep experimenting, you need to keep iterating, you need to keep talking to your users. I have seen a lot of people trying to just perfect their product. They're like, oh, we'll launch after this. No, launch today. So I think Mark Anderson says that if you are not disgusted by your first product launch, then you're launching too late.
Yeah. So Gaurav, speed, a very essential point, not just adding to everything, having the paranoia, being extremely passionate, start very small, start doing, start taking small steps, having the speed and having the ability to go wrong, make mistakes consistently, but moving very, very fast to get to where you are. But today when you say this to many people watching this, it would seem like, oh, but you have the money, you have 3 crores, 3 crore hai to 30 crore you can think about, right? But tell us about the time that when you didn't have anything, when you just started an academy as a piece of paper. From there, how did you get your first round? How did you scale and reach a place where you said you are more stable?
So I wouldn't lie when I say that it was very easy to raise the first round because I had sold my first startup to Carbon Float. So in fact, it took just 3 meetings with Karthik Reddy of Bloom, and he committed the check. So I don't want to glorify it that a lot of hard work went into
No, but
it.
I would say, Gaurav, one thing which I want to tell everyone about you, and I think that will be very useful for the entrepreneurs and people who are trying to build, is that yes, it was very easy for you, but I had seen you in your flat chat days. You moved from Mumbai to here, to new city without anything because you were passionate and crazy, and you didn't know anyone, but you took out time to meet all of us, everyone. Everyone you went and cultivated very genuinely those relationships without any agenda. And I think those things served you when you went.
No, I had a long-term agenda that I'll probably, you guys will help me some way or the other. That was the long-term agenda.
No, but it is important that you had such a strong network where everyone was vouching for you, right? Then you raised your first round of money. So, because it's important for entrepreneurs to know that.
No, but I think it's also about hustle. For example, the first time I visited Yourstory office, I think they were writing something about Flat.2. And I kept pinging the journalist that, hey, I want to meet Shraddha, I want to meet Shraddha. So you met me for 5 seconds, and then I wrote to you 2-3 times before you agreed for a meeting. I think this is back in 2014.
Everyone is here. That's why you're being very humble. Otherwise, what he wants to say, I met you in 5 seconds and I impressed you. Because the why I'm saying this is that confidence is very important. And why I'm asking you this question again and again, Gaurav, because it's very important in today's time, in COVID time, when there's so much of uncertainty, having that self-belief, even if things are not
good. No, but I would like to point out that it's been a science for me. So, for example, I was I've been very antisocial and awkward. I did not have a lot of friends in school and college. I had few ones, and they were very good, and most of them became my co-founders eventually. So, what was important was they were. I must have read at least 3 books about talking to people. One thing I did right was whenever I had a problem statement, I made sure that I watched every single YouTube video on that. I read all the top books on that. So because I was so afraid of talking to people, in one book the experiment was that, hey, today you just have to say hi to 50 people or just ask them the time. So I think this is something that I did long back, and what it did is it gave me that confidence of talking to people. So I was now people might raise the question that, hey, you need to be charming by default or you need to be confident by default. I'm saying even if you are not, treat everything as a science. There are whatever problem you have, if you follow a structured learning path, don't just watch a YouTube video, go make a Google document, write that these are the 5 videos I'll watch, these are the 5 books I'll watch, these are the assignments I'll do. People don't give enough time to learning and planning as much as they do. Today, 60% of my day is drinking coffee and writing ideas. I write plans about what to do, and then I do meetings to execute them. And then maybe I get into an execution mode also. But I think, sorry for distracting here, but I think coming back to the point is that uh, these things didn't come to me naturally. I've been a very socially awkward person from day one. But at some point, I realized that if I be like that, I wouldn't reach where I want to reach. So then I made efforts.
Yeah, no, that I've seen, and you really have worked hard. So again, coming back to the question which I was asking, and sorry I have interrupted there, is that from 3 crores to 30 crores to 300 crores becomes an easy path, but take us through the path of when you didn't have the crores, but you still had the risk-taking ability. What did you do? What were some of the things that you did at that time?
See, I did not go to an IIT. I did not. So obviously, the first few investor meetings were difficult when we were raising money for Flat Chat. I used to. One of the things that I used to do is that I wanted one guy to have belief in me. I used to pitch to every single person I know. Every single person I know. I mean, I have pitched to like everyone. So I think I was in college, third or fourth year, and I was looking for investment for my first startup, Flat.2. And then Akrit Vaish had come and given a talk as a guest lecturer in our college. It was a boring talk, and I've told this to Akrit many times. But at some point, he mentioned that he invests in startups. And then I'm like, I just after the meeting, I went to him, I showed my product, and he says, okay, let's have coffee in Costa Coffee next day. And I think that day only he gave like a 10 lakh angel investment offer or something like that. So I think people who have never raised money, don't try to raise money from venture funds. You can apply. Obviously, you apply to YC, you apply to Search, you apply to. But I would strongly recommend that get angel investors. Because I think your first round of investment from angels will help you a lot more than from a venture fund, because the angels will help you in things you cannot imagine, and they might not even have time. But sometimes you ask a question on WhatsApp and they'll just give you a clear answer. For example, I have had the luxury of having people like Sujit Kumar, Kalyan Krishnamurthy, Sachin Bansal, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Falendra Sama as my angel investors. And these guys never had the time. But if I would message one question to Sujit, I'll get a one-line reply with clarity. It's not a diplomatic answer. It's not an answer, hey, you might do this or you should. It's like, just do this.
Yeah.
And that's it. That one decision, because I think being successful is about decision making. Maybe to be very, very successful, you need to get 400 out of 500 decisions right. And I think uh, angels have the angels will be honest with you, and especially people who have done something. And I'm not saying don't raise venture capital. In fact, I would say that raise venture capital as soon as you can. But I think getting the right set of angel investors, and we have a lot of angel investors in India now. The ecosystem is very, very good. I have started making a few investments, so I think it helps a lot. So those who have never raised funding, focus on angel investor. Make the list of 100 people who invest. Reach out to them via Twitter. If you know someone who knows them, reach out to them via that, or just attend their talks and try to do what I did and try to get hold of them after the talk. I mean, it worked for me because I didn't know anyone who knows angel investors, and I didn't go to an IIT. Obviously, if you're an IIT or if you went to IIM, it's easier to get the meeting. But if you are not, you can't crib the fact that it's easier for them. It's not easier for them. They crack those examinations and they study very hard, and obviously they earn that privilege. But if you didn't,
I have one question now to ask you, because we have limited time and there's so much that we want to know from you, and there's so much that you can and should share. Is like today you are running, you said 50 for one product of yours, it's 50 million ARR, right? Right now. So the kind of scale that you've got in the last few years itself, you did not run a large business, right? You're a young guy. You're a very young guy. And then you have a very young team also, if I may say so. All your co-founders. I've seen from your small office to big office to all the growth and the journey that you've made. How have you kept yourself updated? How have you learned quickly how to build a large company? Because many of us have not seen that kind of skill, right? So how did you equip yourself to be navigating this path so quickly?
What I'm suggesting for angel investment, I kept doing to get advisors. For example, when we were a Series B company, I remember chasing Bhavin Surakia for 6 months. He rejected me 30 times. And see, again, we are a Series B company. I have Sequoia on the cap table now. I have Ceph on the cap table. I have Nexus on the cap table. But I know there are some people I can learn a lot from. And that's like reading 100 books.
Yeah.
So what I did was I made massive efforts. I didn't say, hey, now I have investments, so the learning stops. I made some huge investments. I chased Bhavan for 6 months. He must have rejected me like 10 times. Then I was in Dubai for some reason, and he gave me a 15-minute meeting. And in that meeting, I convinced him, and then he came on board. And today we speak almost 2 hours every week. And he mentors me on a lot of stuff. So what I think was that I had to do that struggle even when we had a lot of money, even when we had raised $10 million, etc. But the moment I did this, again, like when I called Bhavan for the first time in 2017 after this meeting, and he said, read these 3 books, and I'm going to read these 2 books, and I'm going to recommend those 2 books with you. One is Traction by the founder of DuckDuckGo, and the other one is 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. Those books changed my life. And literally, he was someone who had used those books, applied those principles, and scaled certain things. And somebody to tell you, so I think what I did was I shamelessly pursued people who are. So I see building companies as a sport. See, I think if you get this mindset, let me give you something that has worked for me. Assume you are a cricketer and like building companies is playing cricket for you. Now, right now you're a gully cricketer. So if you have to become better, you need to maybe find a Ranji player who helps you play better or who coaches you. If you don't have a coach or a mentor, it is difficult. And maybe, see, to get a coach and a mentor, I have seen every single video that Y Combinator has posted on their YouTube channel. Every single video. And there are very few, because I keep asking entrepreneurs a lot if they have seen, and there are very few people who have seen. Now, once you say that it's a sport for you, the only way you can master the sport is by becoming better at the sport yourself. And how do you do that? Either you find a coach, either you're friends with Sachin Tendulkar and he mentors you personally. But if you are not, then you maybe chase a great player who can help you. Maybe you chase a Ranji Trophy player. Maybe you chase someone who has scaled the startup, etc. Or you start watching a lot of content online. There is this talk by Jack Dorsey who gave a talk to the Y Combinator audience in 2013. It's one of the best pieces of content on entrepreneurship. And he recommends a book in that talk called The Sport Takes Care of Itself. Again, an amazing book. So I think the only way I have kept updated is I assume myself as a player and I assume that I am not a great player. The greatest player is probably Elon Musk or probably Steve Jobs or probably Mark Zuckerberg. And then it's a learning journey. So you keep learning, you keep finding better players, you keep learning from them, and then you make your game better. And then you play a bigger game every time. So I think that has worked.
It's so inspiring listening to young people like you when you're such a young boy, constantly improving. And I've seen that improvement, Gaurav, and that's why it feels very encouraging to listen to this because you've lived everything that you're saying.
No, I know that. I think we had an internal conflict, and I don't want to get into details, but internal conflict, and I brought that team member to your house, and I said, please solve this internal conflict. So, see, I somehow, people feel bad when they get rejected. Somehow I don't, and I have trained myself. If you don't feel bad if you get rejected, that's a wonderful trait to have because then you'll keep, and obviously don't harass someone, don't be stupid, but don't give up. Like if somebody has said no that they don't want to meet you, then don't pick them again. Whether it's an investor or whether it's a venture fund or anybody. But with Bhavan, it was like he didn't have time, and he said, "Hey, I'm busy." And he never said no. So I kept on trying, and eventually I got that meeting. So I think one needs to be shameless until a point where they don't have to be shameless.
Yeah.
Like now it's easier. Now if I have to meet someone, I would call them to my office, and I mean that's a privilege that I have. But I know how much I have worked very very hard to. Now I can do cool stuff like have my EA schedule a meeting with them, and then their EA schedule a meeting, and I can.
It's a very important point that you're saying, and it's so true for all of us, and maybe because of our own upbringing, right? Like the middle class upbringing that we have, हम झिझकते हैं. But somewhere वो झिझक पे भी, I have seen that you've been very stubborn, if I may say so, ziddi. Yes. And that becomes very endearing. Of course, it can become annoying, but I think
have you seen the movie Whiplash? Have you seen the movie Whiplash?
Yes, I have.
I think there is this line in that movie which says that the next Charlie Parker will never be discouraged.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, if you really want it, whoever has rejected you, how much ever your product has not worked. See, Unacademy worked for me, but I'm saying even if things didn't come so easy to us, I would have kept on trying because I would not have given up. Like we went to 4 pivots. It seems easy that hey, everything had going for us. We had investment on day one. We had an IS officer who joined us as a co-founder. We did this, we did that. We had great mentors. But it has been tough for us because we only got things right in 2019. And from 2015 to 2019, we have just been figuring stuff out. And while figuring stuff out, we have been honest that okay, we are still figuring out. Let's burn less money. Let's like so far. I'll give you an interesting statistic. So far, Unacademy has raised $198 million, and out of that, $155 million is still in the bank.
Very good. Especially in today's time, it's such a prudent thing to do. Gaurav, I'm sure many people would have logged on also to listen or understand from you about the edtech space, right, in India. Very quickly, tell us, while you're building Unacademy, what are some of your learnings about the market, some of the things to, if tomorrow someone wants to start an edtech play, what are some of the learnings that you can share with us?
I think what has worked is that in education, the biggest problem to solve is accessibility. Our majority of the traffic comes from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities where they cannot afford to go to Delhi, they cannot afford to go to Kota. And good coaching has become a privilege that if you can spend 1 lakh per year, then you get to study in this coaching center, which we stopped. We said, we'll give you a Netflix like subscription where you'll get best access to the best teachers at 1/5 the cost. So I think affordability, accessibility now, because of Reliance Jio, you build something and you can reach to people so fast, so fast. Utilize YouTube as a channel. So one of the things that has worked very, very well for us is YouTube. I think YouTube is massive. If you're doing an education technology startup, then you must have a content play on YouTube. We never treat it as a content play. We treat it as a North Star metric. For example, we focused on video views on YouTube from day one, and today we are doing 160 million video views per month on YouTube. So build that huge distribution. I think affordability, accessibility, using YouTube as a distribution channel, and making sure that you have great content along with great product, and obviously learning outcomes. So if you're making, so I still think many problems have not been solved today. So if somebody wants to try something, for example, जो engineering students होते हैं, engineering students are not learning. It's a massive problem. There are startups which are making coding jobs easy, but in general, there is so much that can be done for first year, second year, third year engineering students, and if it helps them, it's going to be massive. So I do think there are a lot of opportunities. Education is massive. There are a lot of opportunities which are still there, which people have not solved. So.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask you is that learning versus education for some kind of a degree, some kind of cracking entrance exams. Where do you see we are as a country? We are a young country. Where do you see, because in the West there is a huge emphasis on learning also, but here the edtech play, which have been huge and large, have primarily been on the basis of cracking an exam, getting a certification. Where do you see the market heading?
See, the positive side is that for many people, cracking an exam gives them that. See, I'll tell you, exam is like a tournament right now. So what's happening is that it's a tournament, and you take these tools to crack that exam. But what you learn more than cracking the exam is the ability to fight. So as long as you don't make that exam your ultimate goal, and you realize that while even if you don't crack it, you'll learn grit, you'll learn hard work. Because what I've seen many people keep giving the same examinations for years, and then they suddenly realize that they shouldn't be doing. As long as you're self-aware and you know that you're helping. But I think education system reforms, like there, for example, I think one of the ways I have been very lucky is that I started coding when I was 11 years old. I think, and then while I was leaving Indian schools, the biggest problem that should be solved is that, and now there are companies like White Hat Junior which are doing this. You need to start teaching kids coding from class 1, because it just builds that problem-solving DNA. That here I have a problem, so I'll just solve it. And I think small things like that are needed. But overall, I think our structure in K-12 and for examinations is good. But I only think that maybe only 20% of the top institutions have great teachers and great syllabus and great content. How do we use technology to make sure that in every area, maybe there is a tier 3 city which has an engineering college, how do we ensure that that engineering college has good quality teachers and content? So I think these are some massive problems.
Thank you. Listen, there's some questions which have come from the audience, and we'll quickly take all these questions. So someone has asked, you spoke about not having sales agents like your competitors. So talking about your marketing, we have seen you market on traditional print as well as digital mediums. Right now, with the astounding numbers you're seeing, how have you adjusted your marketing efforts? How are you channelizing your marketing spends according to changing consumer behavior?
See, I've always been a fan of don't create an ad, create content. So every Nike, so I'll talk about three brands that I love. One is Apple, one is Nike, and one is Oprah. Um, I think one of the things that you start marketing is about how like what you make people feel, and I think all these brands do that. So if you enter into an Oberoi hotel, what they are the only hotel in the country that they will not make you wait in the reception. Your form signing or whatever the formalities will happen in the room. So small things like that, and then they have this tagline. Then they have this tagline that will take care of your stuff like that. So I think what we have done is we have created content always. For example, Shashi Tharoor is currently taking a 5-class lecture series on Unacademy 4 p.m. every day. Yesterday was his first class, and 30,000 people were watching live. So what we do is that we are partnering with such people and getting them on the platform, which makes live learning cool because obviously there is JEE or UPSC preparation, but when you see somebody like Mr. Shashi Tharoor teaching on Unacademy, you realize the power of live learning. For example, the amount of tweets we got yesterday about our platform, we haven't gotten so far because live, even my wife was speaking about this, that she watched the lecture and she has not used our product for like 4-5 years now, but she watched the lecture yesterday and she said that, oh, live learning is cool because it was Mr. Shashi Tharoor. So I think what we are trying to do is we are trying to make live learning cool. We are trying to make sure that we just don't put out ads. We put out content which helps people, and then it sort of creates inbound marketing.
Gaurav, tell me something. You've gone for print, right? Because everyone is seeing a lot of your print ads. So the decision to invest in print ads.
See, obviously, I'm talking about earlier scale. At some point, you have to do. Right now, the every third ad on TV is an Academy ad. Every third ad. So, like maybe I'm exaggerating, but like means we are doing a lot of spots. We are doing probably 800 spots a day right now, which is quite huge. So, and even at some point you need to do ATL marketing, and you need to say that you'll go all in, and because at some point the internet users you have captured through digital marketing like YouTube and Facebook. But if you want to reach the masses, I think TV is a good way to reach the masses. Print is a good way to reach the masses.
And are you seeing a good conversion because of these ads?
Yes. Okay, that's a massive revenue growth.
Okay, good. One question which I'm sure most of the people in the tech space would have is, what questions did VCs ask you when you went for fundraising? What are some of the questions which you get typically from the VCs?
I mean, for the first 3-4 years, it was typical that you guys are not making money. How will you make money? We started making money in only end of 2017. So, but I'm very fortunate that. But they saw the vision. See, one of the things that VCs look for is just plain ambition. If you are not ambitious, see, you need to understand how the VC game works. VCs will never fund a lifestyle business. The way it works is that they will make a lot of bets, and they are hoping that one bet is a home run for them. And unlike baseball, where home run gives you a particular score, in business, the home run can give you unlimited runs also. Maybe there is a home run that can give you 5,000 runs. Maybe there is a home run that can give you 500 runs. So they expect a home run that gives them massive outcomes. So I think be very ambitious. One of the things that, like, I keep asking them what worked for them, and one of the things that they kept saying was just plain ambition that you want to solve this big problem. That's it.
Okay. So everyone wants to know the name of the books that you said. So just repeat the two books, traction, the books that you spoke about.
I'll repeat, like, I'll give you 4-5 names, and I think that can change.
Start with the two you said earlier.
22 Immutable Laws of Branding and Traction, and the third one is The Sport Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh.
I hope everyone heard it. 22 immutable laws of branding. Second,
I'm also typing it out so it's easy.
just type it for everyone, no? Yeah. So we have one question. You raised venture capital money and you raised $198 million till now. In the current times, for a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses, what would your advice be if they have to, in these times, is it okay to raise debt